Yunqian, let's get divorced. In the third year of concealing her identity as the daughter of a billionaire and marrying a CEO worth hundreds of billions, he proposed a divorce. Elliot Reed's tone was calm and unwavering, as if he were stating something completely ordinary. Yunqian, however, was shaken to the point of collapse by these 5 words and couldn't help but look at the woman beside him. Just because she's back? 3 years ago, Lillian went abroad to pursue her dreams, rejecting Elliot Reed's marriage proposal. Elliot, a man of such pride, found someone to marry the day after Lillian left the country. In the end, he chose Yunqian. Because she came from a poor background and had no connections, even if they were to divorce in the future, she would pose no threat to him. And so Yunqian diligently served as a tool of spite for 3 years, obedient to his every whim and attending to everything personally. She thought she could finally enter his heart, but she didn't expect that Lillian's return would undo all her 3 years of effort. Elliot Reed's dark eyes were deep. Yes. Undeniably, although Yunqian's status was humble, she was virtuous and good at managing the household, and she had fulfilled the role of a wife to the extreme. But unfortunately, what Elliot Reed wanted was never a virtuous wife and good mother. He needed a woman who was outstanding enough to stand at the same height as him. Clearly Yunqian was not. He disliked her background and even more loathed her humble and timid demeanor, like a daughter vine. He placed the signed divorce agreement on the table. Sign it. I can give you whatever amount of money you want. Looking at the indifference in his eyes, Yunqian felt as if something was blocking her breath, making her feel uncomfortable. 3 years of marriage, yet he was so eager to get rid of her. Seeing that she didn't speak, Elliot Reed directly took out a check and placed it on the table. Is 10 million enough? Yunqian's heart was numb with bitterness, and after a long while she finally spoke in a hoarse voice. Elliot Reed, in your eyes, what exactly am I? A transparent person who has to endure you bringing your white moonlight home? A beggar who can be dismissed with 10 million? Or just a pathetic wretch who could abandon everything to love you, yet still receive not a shred of response? She had tried for 3 whole years. Even a stone should have been warmed by now, right? But how could he bring himself to trample all her dignity underfoot, and turn a blind eye to all her love? Elliot Reed looked at her desperate appearance, his dark eyes very calm. When we got married, I said that you would be my wife and I would give you the status of a wealthy wife and nothing else. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her, chilling her to the bone. Lillian, standing to the side, watched her expression with satisfaction, deliberately softening her legs and falling into Elliot Reed's arms. Elliot, I feel so dizzy, I think I drank too much at the party just now. As expected, she immediately caught Elliot Reed's attention, leaving him with no time to deal with Yunqian. After coldly saying to Yunqian, sign the divorce agreement and leave as soon as possible, he picked up Lillian and carried her upstairs. The next second, Yunqian watched helplessly as he carried Lillian into their bedroom. She felt as if all the blood had been drained from her body, and she stood frozen in place. So she really had been wrong from the start. Elliot Reed was never the right person for her. She closed her eyes and a tear slowly streamed down her face. A dense, piercing pain emanated from her heart, making it hard for her to breathe. She should have seen it clearly. She reached for the divorce agreement on the table and signed her name, stroke by stroke. Then she looked at the check and tore it into shreds. She doesn't care about the money at all. She was too foolish in the past. In the future, she will never hand over her true heart foolishly again. After doing all this, Yunqian packed up all her belongings and left the villa without looking back. It was raining heavily outside the villa. She threw her apron and all her luggage into the trash can, as if to completely discard her foolish self from the past 3 years. Then she stood in the rain, her eyes clear and cold as she made a phone call. Pick me up and take me home. 20 minutes later. Hundreds of limited edition luxury cars sped through the rainy night. The ostentatious display of the luxury cars was too much. They sped away, the roar of the engines startling the servants. A group of servants ran out, only to see a cloud of dust. Were they mistaken? Could the person those luxury cars just picked up have been the young mistress? The servants entered the villa and ran into Elliot Reed, who had just finished towing Lillian to sleep. Finally, one of the bolder ones couldn't help but say, "Young master, it seems like madam was just picked up by 100 luxury cars." Elliot Reed's expression was cold and he didn't even raise his head. "I don't need servants with bad eyesight." The servants were shocked and immediately thought that the young madam had no background, came from the countryside and had only a junior high school education. Since marrying into the family, she had been ridiculed by countless people as a sparrow turning into a phoenix. Because of this, the young master disliked her, and it also made Madame Reed despise her. How could she possibly know people who drive luxury cars? Moreover, those cars they saw were not cheap, any one of them was extraordinary, and this time they were able to see hundreds of them together. It seemed they were indeed mistaken. Afraid of losing their jobs, the maids apologized one after another, never daring to mention the matter again. Meanwhile, on the other side, hundreds of luxury cars sped along the road, finally stopping in front of a luxurious manor. Dozens of bodyguards got out of the car in unison, first opening the door of the lead limousine, and then waiting respectfully on both sides. Butler Lee ran out of the manor and was overjoyed when he saw that it was really Yun Qian. "Miss, you are finally willing to come back." Yun Qian smiled faintly, her tone carrying the oppression of a superior. "Uncle Lee, I'm back." The next second Yunmu also greeted her. "Qianxia, is that you?" Seeing the white hair on Yunmu's head, Yun Qian couldn't help but tear up. "Mom, I'm sorry, your daughter is unfilial. I will never run away from home again." 3 years ago, after falling in love with Elliot Reed, she heard that he wanted to find a wife without a background. Disregarding her family's objections, she married him under a false name, thinking she could find true love, but she never expected her sincere heart to be trampled upon. Now she has finally figured it out. She was born to be outstanding, yet for the past 3 years she willingly became a caged bird for a man, which is simply ridiculous. Yun Mu naturally understands Yun Qian's abilities. A Harvard double doctorate, strategic and bold, she is said to be a rare business prodigy, but 3 years ago for love she was willing to be subservient and retire to domesticity. Now seeing that she has come to her senses, he excitedly grasps her hand. "You're finally back. In these 3 years, Shingya Group has had repeated problems under your cousin's management." Yun Qian, recalling her cousin's playboy demeanor, is not surprised. Her eyes reflect a cold and firm light. "Don't worry, now that I'm back I won't let him run wild again. Shingya was left by Grandpa and she won't allow anyone to lay a finger on it." The next day, the news of the return of the Yun family's eldest daughter spread throughout the entire group. Since the death of Shingya's old master a few years ago, who entrusted the huge family business to Yun Qian, this eldest daughter has been ruthless. In the most difficult times she purged those who were restless due to the old master's death. But soon she disappeared. Now that she has returned again, everyone is full of curiosity about her. Yun Yingjie hadn't seen this cousin for 3 years. He thought he had secured his position as president. Even though the news of Yun Qian's return had spread throughout the company, he still sat in the president's office, unwilling to move. What could she, a woman, do to him? Yun Yingjie had always been very dissatisfied that the old man insisted on leaving the company to her. When Yun Qian left 3 years ago, although she left a group of people for Shingya, Yun Yingjie couldn't help but use his status to force them to step down, and forcibly seize the position of acting president. Now how could he be willing to let go so easily? But soon the office door was pushed open and 4 black-suited bodyguards walked in. Without a word, they dismantled and threw away all his belongings. Then 2 of them directly lifted his office chair, ready to kick him out. "Let go. Let go of me." At this moment, a woman with black hair and red lips, wearing a Chanel suit, walked in. Yun Qian took off her sunglasses and smiled slightly. "Cousin, do you like the gift I gave you?" "Yun Qian, what right do you have to kick me out?" Yun Yingjie's face turned black with anger. Yun Qian slowly took out a document. Based on this, Yun Yingjie was speechless at once when he saw it. It was the will left by his grandfather, which clearly stated that Shingya was to be inherited by Yun Qian. "But I've been managing Shingya for the past 3 years. "You've been managing?" Yun Qian looked at him coldly. "In these 3 years, how much has Shingya lost and how much money has gone into your pocket? Do you want me to make a report for you to see?" Sure enough, Yun Yingjie froze instantly. How could he forget that this cousin was a Harvard graduate and the heir most favored by his grandfather before she disappeared? "While I'm still too lazy to pursue the matter, you better leave quickly. Otherwise, if you have to spit out the money you've swallowed over the past few years, I'm afraid you'll be ruined." In the end, Yun Yingjie could only slink away from Shingya. Yun Qian officially took over the group, but the situation was not good. Just as Yun's mother said, the fact that Shingya hadn't gone bankrupt in the past few years under Yun Yingjie's management could only be attributed to its solid foundation. She had been burning the midnight oil for days, barely managing to sort out the work from the past few years. 3 days later, the secretary opened the office door. President Yun, Vice President Yun originally had a dinner party this afternoon regarding an investment project. Will you be attending? Yun Qian frowned. She didn't want to go in Yun Ingjia's place, but she heard that many company executives would be there. What kind of investment was so attractive? After thinking for a moment, she finally made a decision. Arrange it for me. On the other side, Elliot Reed's assistant walked into the office. Mr. Liu, the heiress of Shingya, has recently returned. Oh. Elliot Reed raised his head with interest. He had long heard of the heiress of Shingya's reputation. A few years ago, the chairman of Shingya passed away, entrusting the important task to a young girl. Various forces were eyeing the company covetously, and Shingya was on the verge of collapse. As a result, as soon as she took office, she used swift and decisive means to deter those people from acting rashly. Clearly, she's a formidable character. Elliot Reed had been somewhat interested in this young lady a few years ago and had even considered collaborating with her, but unfortunately she suddenly disappeared for some reason. Now she's back? Seeing that his boss seemed very interested in the new president of Shingyi, the assistant said, "There's a dinner invitation for you tonight, and I heard that the president of Shingyi will be there as well. Would you like to go?" Elliot Reed's dark eyes flickered slightly and he said softly, "Go and see." Assistant, okay. Evening. In the private room, Yun Qian arrived a little late. After pushing the door open and entering, the room was quiet for a moment. Dozens of men in suits sized up the woman before them. Yun Qian was not intimidated at all and walked in to introduce herself. "Hello everyone, I am Yun Qian, the new president of Shingya Group." As she spoke, she poured herself a glass of white wine. "I'm late, I apologize with this drink, please forgive me." After a glass of high-proof liquor, the men at the table saw her so forthright and began to speak. "President Yun is truly a straightforward person. I've long heard that the eldest daughter of the richest Yun family is extraordinary, and indeed she is generous. President Yun, please sit down quickly. You're not allowed to leave today until you've had your fill." Yun Qian sat down amidst the crowd, listening quietly as she socialized, and they continued to discuss the investment. The man who organized the gathering was named Vincent, said to have just returned from Wall Street. He was the one leading the investment. After seeing Yun Qian, he kept intentionally mentioning in her ear how hard-won and profitable this project was. After a while, someone said, "It seems that President Liu from Tianzi hasn't arrived yet either?" Yun Qian suddenly looked up. Elliot Reed was coming too? At this moment, a waiter knocked on the door from outside. "Excuse me, Mr. Liu from Tianzi Group has arrived." Elliot Reed got off the elevator and followed the waiter into the private room. When he entered, the private room was filled with only men. He raised his eyes and took in everyone in the room. The female CEO wasn't here? For some reason he felt a little down. Then he said lightly, "Sorry I'm late." At that moment, outside the private room, Yun Qian, who had had a few drinks, was being helped into the elevator by another man in a suit. Noah looked at her with interest. "I couldn't find you for the past 3 years, but I ran into you while having a drink." Yun Qian smiled faintly. "It shows we are still destined." Noah was her childhood friend. Just now Yun Qian wanted to leave, but that Vincent insisted on stopping her. Fortunately, Noah happened to pass by and recognized her voice, so he took her away. The two went all the way to the underground parking lot, and Noah drove his Maybach to take her home. The cool evening breeze on her face made Yun Qian feel more comfortable. "I heard Elliot Reed is here too. What, did you run out here early just to avoid your ex-husband?" Hearing that name again, she thought she would feel lost, but her heart was incredibly calm. She replied calmly, "No, I just think there's something wrong with this investor." Noah's eyes became serious. "You mean Vincent, the one who came back from Wall Street?" Yun Qian nodded. "We talked for over 20 minutes and he kept talking about high returns and high interest rates without mentioning the risks at all. Besides, his resume is so impressive that it seems a bit fake. Why would a Wall Street trader who has never lost a battle suddenly return to China and offer a project that seems like giving away money to do charity in Rongqing?" Hearing her say that, Noah also found it strange. "He approached my grandfather some time ago, but my grandfather is old-fashioned and unwilling to make these investments, so nothing came of it. Now that you mention it, it does seem strange." Yun Qian shook her head. Doing business requires avoiding the single-minded pursuit of profit. So whether Elliot Reed comes today or not, she is leaving. The next day, Yun Qian instructed her assistant. "We're not following up on Vincent's investment. The project is cancelled." The assistant looked at her, puzzled. But I heard that several other companies have increased their investment. Are we really going to withdraw? Yun Qian nodded, decisive, withdraw. After she made this decision, it gave the old men on the board of directors who didn't foo her an opportunity. Coupled with Yun Yingjia's behind-the-scenes instigation, the entire group was secretly discussing that the new female president was indeed just a pretty face and didn't know how to do business at all, causing the company to lose a major project as soon as she arrived. Yun Qian naturally knew these rumors, but she didn't care and just continued doing her own thing. Until more than 10 days later the news came. Vincent ran away with the more than $1 billion of investment he had attracted, and no one knew if he was dead or alive. Later it was discovered that he was a financial swindler in North America, specializing in defrauding large companies. This time he set his sights on Rongqing as soon as he returned to China. Of all the major companies targeted by him, only 2 emerged unscathed. One was Shingya Group, and the other was Elliot Reed's Tianza. For a time, those in Shingya Group who were not convinced by Yun Qian had nothing more to say. On the other side, Tianza Group. The assistant walked into Elliot Reed's office to report the matter to him. Mr. Liu, you were right that Vincent is indeed a swindler. That night in the private room, Elliot Reed only stayed for half an hour, but he also noticed something was wrong, so he left in time. He looked at the computer, not taking it seriously. People who fall for this kind of scam deserve to be cheated. The assistant added, I heard that the female president of Shingya also left early that night. She and you are the only 2 who were not swindled out of investment. Her again. Looks like even after 3 years this young lady's brain hasn't gotten any dumber. He really is strange. If they're cousins, how could the previous acting president of Shingya be so stupid? Tianza and Shingya were originally going to cooperate this year, but because Yun Yingjie did some stupid things before, Elliot Reed, who is most impatient with doing business with idiots, simply gave up. Now it might be worth giving it another shot. He said casually, contact Shingya and ask if they're still interested in the cooperation we proposed at the beginning of the year. Yes. But soon Shingya responded. Simple and direct. No interest, no consideration, no cooperation. The words were very decisive, leaving no room for retreat. This Miss Xing, it seems, is particularly unwilling to cooperate with Tianza. However, Elliot Reed didn't care. He was also a proud son of heaven and had no time to guess what others were thinking. I didn't think about it much after that. Xia, you saved Shingya hundreds of millions this time, shouldn't you reward yourself? Seeing that Yun Qian had been devoted to work since returning home, Noah, entrusted by Yun's mother, specially pulled her out for shopping. Yun Qian herself has very little desire for shopping, but she didn't want to disappoint her mother and friend, so she followed Noah to Rongqing's largest shopping mall. The 2 walked into a luxury shoe store and looking at the glittering high heels in the cabinets, she really found some interest. That's more like it. Look at you still wearing shoes from 3 years ago. Noah defended her. Did you go bankrupt? Does Elliot Reed never spend money on you? Yun Qian lowered her eyes, suddenly a little lost in thought. She was only focused on pleasing Elliot Reed back then, so she didn't have the mind to dress herself up. Noah thought he had touched a sore spot and just then his phone rang. He waved apologetically before walking out to answer it. Yun Qian couldn't help but find it amusing. She was just reminiscing about the past. After looking around for a while, she stopped in front of a display case showcasing a pair of dark green classic silk high heels. Let me see this one. After the saleswoman took it out, Yun Qian liked it at first glance and was just about to try it on. Suddenly, a familiar and harsh voice came from behind. Yun Qian? Su Lan and Lillian had just walked into the store when they saw a familiar figure, none other than her poor ex-daughter-in-law. Yun Qian didn't react much when he saw them, glancing over before turning his attention back to the shoes. Su Lan was furious. This country bumpkin used to try to please her every day, but now that they were divorced he dared to ignore her? She said sharply, using the alimony you got from divorcing Elliot to buy luxury goods? People like you can't hide that poor, sour smell no matter how many brand names you wear. Yun Qian frowned. I didn't take a penny of your family's money. If you don't believe me, you can go back and ask Elliot Reed. Su Lan acted as if she had heard a joke. A poor country bumpkin like you wouldn't take our family's money? Her attitude was too awful. Yun Qian used to tolerate her for Elliot Reed's sake, but now she naturally wouldn't anymore. Just as she was about to speak, Lillian, who had heard enough from the side, slowly said, All right, Auntie, don't ruin your shopping mood. Only then did Su Lan coldly snort and turn to look at shoes in another direction. But in just a few minutes, Lillian also took a fancy to the pair of shoes in Yunqian's hands, and it was the last pair in the store. She walked up to Yunqian. "Miss Yun, do you want to buy these shoes? I also want to buy them. If you don't buy them, I don't really want to buy shoes that other people have tried on." Although the tone was negotiable, she was actually certain that Yunqian couldn't afford them and didn't want her to try them on. Yunqian found it amusing. This Lillian, with her gentle and kind appearance, was actually a soft knife. "Miss Yun has quite the tone. Anyone who didn't know better would think you were the owner." Lillian immediately put on a wronged expression. "I'm just afraid that if you try it on and don't buy it, it would be a waste." At this moment, Su Lan walked over again. "Exactly, who would want to buy shoes that someone like you has tried on? Besides, didn't you say you didn't take my son's money? Can you afford them?" Yun Qian was about to lose her temper when Noah's cold voice came from behind. "Wrap up these shoes." He walked to Yun Qian's side and said to the salesperson, "Also, how many pairs of these shoes are left in the whole city? We'll buy them all." Yun Qian felt it was unnecessary and tugged at his sleeve. Unexpectedly, Noah added, "It's okay, otherwise it would be bad luck to wear the same shoes as someone with low character." These words were clearly directed at Lillian, who was so stifled that her face turned red. However, Noah looked like someone not to be trifled with, and even Su Lan could only stare at him with a green face. Who is this man willing to give Yun Qianhua so much money? After the shoes and bags were packed, Noah led Yun Qian out without even glancing at the two people beside them. Watching their backs, Lillian said meaningfully, "This man seems to be very good to Miss Yun. No wonder she didn't want Elliot's money when she got divorced." Su Lan said resentfully, "What if she's climbed a new branch? At most she'll just be played with." Elliot Reed was holding an exquisite wood carving he found in the bedroom, a lifelike little deer. The craftsmanship was very delicate, not like a mass-produced product, but more like something someone had carved themselves. Then he noticed a character Yun carved at the very bottom. Did Yun Qian carve this? How could an ordinary woman from the countryside with little education create such a work of art? Elliot Reed narrowed his eyes slightly, lost in thought. He had never been interested in Yun Qian before, and his knowledge of her was limited to knowing her name, so naturally he didn't know what she could or couldn't do. Now that he thought about it, she did seem to always be carving something out of wood. He didn't throw away the wood carving, perhaps because it was so exquisitely crafted that discarding it would be a waste of a treasure. Elliot Reed opened the cabinet and placed the wood carving at the very bottom. When he looked up, he saw rows of clothes neatly categorized. He was stunned again, remembering that this was also done when Yun Qian was around. Seriously speaking, she was indeed very meticulous in her work, knowing that he was usually very busy and had to attend various occasions. When she organized the wardrobe, she would directly match a set of clothes for him according to the scene, including accessories. Work attire, social attire, event attire, evening gown attire. So he can wear them directly when he needs them. Moreover, this woman seems to have good taste. The outfits she puts together are always simple yet beautiful, not at all inferior to those of professional stylists. As Elliot Reed thought about it, his handsome eyebrows slowly furrowed. Yun Qian. Is she really just an uneducated country bumpkin? The thought had only been in his head for 2 seconds when the door to the room suddenly opened and Lillian walked in. Elliot Reed subconsciously closed the closet door. Something wrong? Lillian had been snubbed by Yun Qian today, so naturally she wouldn't let this opportunity to complain pass. She said deliberately, "It's nothing, it's just that Auntie isn't very happy." "What's wrong?" She bit her lip. "Today we ran into Yun Qian at the mall. She was with a very rich man and they looked very close. She even talked back to Auntie a few times." Man. A strange feeling flashed through his heart. She used to act like she was madly in love with him. Has she moved on to someone else so quickly? For some reason, Elliot Reed suddenly recalled Yun Qian's gentle demeanor in front of him. Would she be like that in front of other men too? He frowned slightly and said coldly, "We're divorced, there's no need to care about her." With that, he strode out of the bedroom and went to the study. But the name Yun Qian kept popping up in his mind, her wood carvings, the clothes she put together, and this new man. He suddenly felt like he had never understood this so-called ex-wife. After a long while he dialed a number. "Help me check on someone." After a short rest, Yun Qian buried himself in his work again. Noah still came to find her from time to time, either asking her to have dinner with him or wanting to take her out to play, which made Yun Qian want to beat him up. At noon, Noah sneaked from his company to Shingya again. Yun Qian said without changing her expression. No lunch, no golf, no racing. Noah put on a heartbroken look. You're too indifferent, and here I specially prepared a surprise for you. Yun Qian then spared him a glance. What? He smiled mysteriously, opened his phone and showed it to her. It was a private forum on a foreign website. It was full of wealthy Chinese American women, all scolding Lillian. Some even posted screenshots of Lillian and their husbands checking into hotels. Your ex-husband's white moonlight pretends to be a highly educated woman, but in reality she's a notorious social butterfly in North America. She only returned to China after her reputation stank. Rumor has it that in America at least 3 out of 10 wealthy wives have had their husbands seduced by her. Yun Qian browsed the forum for a while, but found some of the pictures there to be an eyesore and quickly closed it. He was a little surprised, though. Was this really the kind of woman Elliot Reed couldn't forget? She really didn't know if he was blind or if she had been blind to have ever liked him. Noah said with malicious intent. Do you want to tell your unfortunate ex-husband and then enjoy his expression when he finds out the truth? Yun Qian threw the phone back, disinterested. Not interested. Why tell him? Scumbag and bitch, a perfect match. On the other side, the study. The people Elliot Reed sent to investigate Yun Qian had also gotten results. The information we could find is still the same as it was 3 years ago, and after she left we couldn't find any news. The person on the other end reported each word carefully. Elliot Reed's dark eyes were incredibly deep as he hung up the phone. For the first time he felt that his ex-wife, whom he had previously disdained to understand, was somewhat mysterious. Where did she go? Where else could she go? After a while somehow he found her number in his address book and dialed it as if possessed. Soon a mechanical female voice came through. He was actually blocked. Elliot Reed was stunned for a moment, then sneered and threw his phone on the table. A few hours later Lillian walked into the study. Elliot Reed was working and Lillian tentatively said, Elliot, you work so late every day, you should find someone to share the burden, otherwise your body won't be able to handle it. He replied nonchalantly, It's nothing, you should rest first. Lillian added, But I want to help you. Elliot Reed was dealing with a rather urgent contract, and his tone unconsciously carried a hint of impatience. No need. He didn't look up at her, so naturally he didn't notice the ambition and greed hidden in Lillian's eyes. She is not from a wealthy family. Although her parents are intellectuals, they don't have much money. Lillian has been immersed in power and money abroad for years and can't extricate herself. If she couldn't stay in the United States, she wouldn't have returned to China. After returning to China, she knew that Elliot Reed hadn't forgotten her, so naturally she wouldn't let him go easily. But compared to Elliot Reed, she wanted the vast family fortune even more. However, although Elliot Reed was good to her, he was always extremely cautious when it came to company matters. Even if she wanted to interfere with Tianzi's affairs, she could never find an opportunity. But I was also afraid of making it too obvious and being discovered by him. At this moment, Elliot Reed probably realized that his attitude was not very good and stopped to say, Xiaoxue, your birthday is coming soon and I plan to hold a birthday party for you. You should take a good rest recently and don't worry about other things. Lillian could only squeeze out a smile. Thank you, Elliot. Turning around to leave, the unwillingness in her eyes was fully revealed. After leaving the study she had other ideas in mind. Yesterday she ran into Yunningjie, who had just been ousted from Shingya Group at the Guanlon Club. Shingya Group, the company of Rongqing's richest man. If she possessed Shingya, what would she have to worry about in terms of power and money? In her eyes, Xingya's newly appointed female president was just a pampered young lady, and Yunningjie was even more of a dullard. This family was much easier to manipulate than Elliot Reed. A flash of malice crossed Lillian's eyes, and she had already made up her mind. Back in her room she dialed Yunningjie's number. Young mastering, how about we make a deal? A few days later, when Yun Qian was out for dinner with Noah, she mentioned Yunningjie's unusual behavior these past few days. He's always resented grandfather for giving me the company, and now he's actually offered to treat me to dinner and apologize. Yun Qian said while cutting her steak. Noah, recalling Yunningjie's behavior over the past 3 years, said seriously, Qian Xia, your cousin's character is really worrying, you'd better be careful. Of course Yun Qian knew that, otherwise Grandpa wouldn't have prevented him from inheriting Xingya's shares back then. Thinking about the dinner appointment tomorrow, she felt more and more that something was off. Noah, can you help me check what Yunningjie has been up to these past few days? Noah was also worried about her safety and immediately sent someone to investigate. As it turned out, this investigation was a big deal. After the investigation, Yun Qian felt a chill all over her body. Watching the items Yun Ingjie bought on the surveillance footage, Noah's face turned livid. "I'm going to drag that beast over here right now." Yun Qian stopped him, her eyes also turning cold. "Don't rush. You don't want to let him off the hook, do you? He was trying to make you." Yun Qian shook her head. "I'm not that much of a saint, it's just that we don't have enough evidence right now. I have to go to the appointment tomorrow to catch him red-handed." She sneered. "My cousin is living too well. He needs to go where he should and reflect on himself." The next day, Yun Qian went to the club where Yun Ingjie had arranged to meet her alone. She walked into the private room without any precautions. The room was filled with a strong fragrance and it was empty. Yun Ingjie had not yet arrived. In fact, he and Lillian were sitting in the next private room, quietly listening to the sounds next door. Suddenly, a sharp scream came. Yun Ingjie looked excited. Did it succeed? Lillian rolled her eyes. Of course she didn't want to come forward for this kind of thing. "Go and see." Yun Ingjie immediately ran out, excitedly calling the people outside to let the reporters in, but the assistant returned tremblingly. "Young master, we've been discovered." Yun Ingjie frowned and pushed open the door of the private room where Yun Qian was. "Waste. Who discovered you?" All his words caught in his throat as the door opened. Yun Qian didn't look like he had been drugged at all. He was sitting in the middle of the sofa, looking at him coldly. The 3 strong men he had brought were also held down by several bodyguards, kneeling on the ground. He began to tremble all over, unable to speak clearly. You weren't fooled. With a brain like yours, you're trying to hurt people?" Yun Qian said mockingly. "Yun Ingjie, I thought I treated you well, but you actually wanted to drug me and find a few men to humiliate me and even find reporters to make it public? What, do you think I would die of shame and anger and then hand over Shingya to you? Dream on." Seeing that his scheme was exposed, a fierce look flashed in Yun Ingjie's eyes and he said viciously, "That's right, I just wanted to harm you. Shingya was originally mine." Yun Qian felt that he was beyond redemption and said coldly, "Hopeless, then go to jail and repent." Then several uniformed policemen ran in and put handcuffs on him. Only then did Yun Ingjie realize that what he had done this time could not be solved with money, but was a crime. He shouted anxiously, "It wasn't my idea, it was Lillian, she's next door. Go and catch her." Hearing this name, Yun Qian frowned. The police immediately ran next door, but Lillian, seeing that the situation was not good, had already run away. Yun Qian quickly turned around and leaned against the window of the booth, seeing a luxury car with a very familiar license plate slowly starting below. He knows him. That's a car under Elliot Reed's name. Yun Ingjie was still loudly protesting his innocence, but Lillian was such a shrewd person. Every time she came up with an idea, she would tell Yun Ingjie in person, leaving no evidence behind. The drugs and the strong men were all Yun Ingjie's doing, and he didn't even show his face just now. A chilling ice-cold light flickered in Yun Qian's eyes. Without a single glance at Yun Ingjie, she walked straight out. That evening, the Yun family manor. Noah had already investigated the matter thoroughly. Yun Ingjie did meet with Lillian twice before buying the drug. Yun Qian smiled coldly. "I don't have time to settle accounts with her, but she's actually delivering herself to my door." Originally, she really didn't have time to bother with this woman. It was just that she had stolen a man who didn't love her, and Yun Qian didn't plan to retaliate against her. But the result of letting it go was that she used such vicious methods on herself and even had designs on Shingya. If something happened to her, Yun Ingjie would be the first heir to Shingya. If she then deceived that fool Yun Ingjie, wouldn't this huge fortune be easily obtained? What a great plan. Yun Qian closed her eyes and after a long while, let out a snort from her throat. Noah looked at her. "Qian Xiao, what do you want to do?" She smiled and hooked her lips. "I heard that Elliot Reed is going to throw her a birthday party. Such a grand banquet, how can I not show them something?" The next day, Elliot Reed received a call from the president's office of Shingya Group at the company. The secretary's voice on the other end was sweet, and looking at Yun Qian in front of her, she spoke word by word according to her instructions. "Mr. Liu, our president would like to ask, does the cooperation you mentioned last time still count?" Elliot Reed paused. This Shingya president is really strange. Last time he looked like he would never cooperate with him in this lifetime, but now he is taking the initiative to call? He toyed with the expensive pen in his hand with interest. Why did she change her mind? The CEO said that it's better to have one more friend than one more enemy. She was wrong last time. If you agree, we would be very grateful. Elliot Reed narrowed his eyes. How do I know you're telling the truth this time? We heard that you will be holding a birthday party for your girlfriend soon. To show our sincerity in cooperation, the CO will attend with a generous gift on that day. Hearing that, this young lady does seem to have some sincerity. Elliot Reed was not one to stand on ceremony either. Prosperous industries could bring him benefits, and now that they were taking the initiative to show their goodwill, he would not refuse. Okay, I'll be waiting for your arrival. The birthday banquet was indeed very grand on the day. Elliot Reed gave Lillian ample face, booking the most expensive North Island hotel in Rome City, with the parking lot in front of the first floor filled with all kinds of luxury cars. Various socialites and daughters of wealthy families also surrounded Lillian, practically pumping her up like a princess. Even her parents, who had always been dedicated to scientific research, were invited, and others kept praising her in her ear as a cultured lady from a scholarly family. Lillian's vanity was greatly satisfied, making up for her dissatisfaction with the failure of that plan some time ago. Look, even without a vast fortune, she is still the focus of everyone's attention, still possesses a respectable family background, and has the grand banquet and the love of Elliot Reed that all girls envy. Elliot Reed accompanied Lillian, exchanging pleasantries. He didn't actually like such a noisy atmosphere, but for his girlfriend he had to endure it. Sue Lon was also wearing an expensive dress, chatting with the guests, every word expressing her satisfaction with Lillian. Yes, Elliot and Xiaoxue are getting engaged soon. A girl like Xiaoxue is a perfect match for him. Ex-wife. Don't mention that country bumpkin. She has nothing going for her. How could she compare to Xiaoxue? She's not even worthy to lick Xiaoxue's toes. Elliot Reed happened to pass by and overheard Su Lan's undisguised disparagement of Yun Qian. He frowned, feeling that it was inappropriate for his mother to say such things on this occasion. Lillian heard it too, but she was naturally smug. What she didn't notice, however, was that 3 more luxuriously dressed noblewomen had entered the banquet hall. The noblewomen quietly walked up to Lillian, rushed over and began punching and kicking her. Even Elliot Reed didn't react in time and was pushed away by them. Bitch, you think we couldn't find you just because you ran back to the country? How dare you, the mistress who specializes in destroying families, even celebrate your birthday? The entire venue fell silent. Lillian's long hair was disheveled from being pulled, and even her dress was torn. Elliot Reed, after reacting, had a dark look in his eyes and reached out to stop them. Who told you to come here and cause trouble? The women were not intimidated at all. She's the bitch who seduced my husband, I'm going to beat her up. Lillian cowered behind Elliot Reed, repeatedly denying, No, Elliot, they're all lying, I've never even met them. Just then, the large screen at the front of the venue suddenly went black for a moment, followed by a series of photos flashing across it, showing Lillian in hotel rooms with various wealthy old men overseas. The photos looped and the crowd gasped in horror. Lillian's Kochi parents were so angry that they almost fainted on the spot. Elliot Reed's face was even darker and he looked at Lillian with icy eyes. Lillian's face was ashen and she was still resisting stubbornly. It's not me, these photos must be photoshopped, Elliot, you believe me. Those rich wives spoke again. Photoshopped? I have a video here, do you want me to play it for you so everyone can see if it's photoshopped? Lillian trembled all over at those words, her lips quivering as she dared not speak. The venue fell into a deathly silence, when suddenly the loud welcoming voice of the hotel doorman rang out, particularly jarring. President of Shingya Group, President Yun Qianyun has arrived. The double doors swung open and a woman in a silver haute couture dress walked in gracefully, her eyebrows and eyes beautiful, the corners of her crimson lips gooded a hint of laugh. Seeing Yun Qian dressed to the nines, the flustered Lillian grabbed at her as if she were a lifeline. Yun Qian, you did this. You're trying to hurt me. Elliot Reed was also stunned for a moment when he saw Yun Qian's arrival. His guess was right. Yun Qian was not some countrywoman without a background or knowledge at all. But he didn't expect Yun Qian to be the heiress of Shingya Group. Yun Qian had been deceiving him all these 3 years. Not only Yun Qian but even Lillian, whom he thought was innocent and naive, had been lying to him all along. The always arrogant Elliot Reed was actually being played by 2 women, and his face was extremely gloomy. Yun Qian approached Lillian step by step with elegant steps. Stop trying to pin the blame on me here. What did I do to harm you? Did I force you to seduce someone else's husband? Yun Qian's calm tone and powerful aura immediately silenced Lillian. But she quickly recovered, and now she could only deny it vehemently, insisting that Yun Qian was framing her. Otherwise, Elliot Reed would not let her off either. She knew Elliot Reed too well. She knew that what he hated most was being deceived. It's you. You hate me for taking Elliot away from you, so you deliberately designed to frame me. Humph. Yun Qian let out a soft laugh. Just a man not worth me spending so much effort on. Hearing this, a change that was hard to see through flashed in Elliot Reed's eyes beside her. You. What do you mean? Lillian's speech became hesitant, and her heart became even more flustered. Yun Qian glanced at Lillian, scanning her prey like an eagle. What do you think? It seems Yun Qian already knows that she conspired with Yunjie to harm her. That matter is different in nature from seducing someone else's husband. That's a crime that can lead to imprisonment. So Lillian placed her hopes on Elliot Reed again. She walked towards Elliot Reed, clutching his arm tightly. Elliot, Yun Qian is framing me. You must believe me. I love you so much. How could I do such a thing? Elliot Reed was an extremely intelligent person, and he had guessed the ins and outs of the matter. Presumably, Yunjie, that fool, being arrested and imprisoned some time ago, was done by Yun Qian. And the reason must be that he did something to offend Yun Qian and was caught by her. And this is also greatly related to Lillian. Elliot Reed pulled his hand away from Lillian's, glancing at her with disgust. Lillian slumped to the ground, feeling a chill all over her body. She's done for. She has nothing left. Honor was gone, and so was Elliot Reed. The birthday dinner, which was supposed to be lively, ended on such an unpleasant note. Lillian's scandal immediately topped the trending searches, but it was quickly suppressed. Yun Qian knew that Elliot Reed had done it, but she didn't stop him because her goal had already been achieved. It both avenged Lillian and disgusted Elliot Reed. Elliot Reed, such a proud man, learning that his beloved girlfriend was such a person, and having it made public, would be disgusted for quite a while. Thinking of this, Yun Qian found it a bit laughable, but they brought it upon themselves. A scumbag and a bitch are a match made in heaven. Elliot Reed may not have loved Lillian that much. Perhaps he was just obsessed with her. Otherwise, why would he have gotten married immediately after she went abroad? Now, I'm afraid that the remaining obsession has also dissipated. What remains for Elliot Reed should be endless regret, regretting not seeing Lillian's true character sooner. With Elliot Reed's capabilities, finding out about Lillian's affairs abroad would be a piece of cake. But he didn't do that. He was too confident in Lillian. Or rather, he was too confident in himself. Now that Yunjie is in prison, Yun Qian later provided the police with a lot of evidence of his embezzlement and corruption. Presumably, he will be sentenced heavily and won't be seen for a while. The Yun Qian's aunt's family always came to make trouble for Yun Qian every few days. Because there were security guards at the company, they couldn't get in, so they shifted their battlefield to her home. Later, Yun Qian simply moved out of her home and into a detached villa under her own name. They couldn't find Yun Qian at home, and later the matter fizzled out. Yun Qian's grandfather had 2 children. One was Yun Qian's father, Yun Anting, and the other was Yun Qian's aunt, Yun Mo Li. Yun Qian's father, Yun Anting, died in a traffic accident when she was very young, so she was basically raised by her grandfather. Deeply influenced by her grandfather since childhood, she has an excellent talent for doing business. Yunjie grew up spoiled by Yun Mo Li. He is a second-generation heir who only knows how to eat, drink, and have fun, but he is also quite ambitious. Under Yun Qian's leadership, Shingya Group has begun to get back on track, slowly returning to its former glory. The shareholders have gone from initially questioning Yun Qian, the newly appointed president, to now praising him highly. As for the lackeys of Yunjie that the company had left behind, Yun Qian had already purged them completely. Yun Qian had just sat down in his office when a knock came at the door. "Come in." The person who pushed the door open was Yun Qian's secretary, whose surname was in secretary, and was holding a large bouquet of roses in her arms, obscuring her from view behind the flowers. She carefully placed the roses on Yun Qian's desk and then breathed a sigh of relief. "Mr. Yun, your flowers." Yun Qian looked the bouquet of flowers in front of her up and down, and then found a card in the flowers. Opening it, she saw the words, "Happy Cooperation," written inside. The font looked printed, probably put in by someone at the flower shop. "Who sent these flowers?" Yun Qian asked. Secretarian replied, "This flower was delivered to the front desk and said to be for you, so I brought it up for you. As for who sent it, I'm not sure." The mystery of who sent the flowers was quickly revealed, because an unwelcome guest came to the company for Yunqian. Elliot Reed. After all, Elliot Reed is the president of Tianza Group, so when he comes, Yunqian, as the president of Shingya Group, naturally has to receive him. Elliot Reed sat in the reception room, leisurely drinking coffee, waiting for Yunqian's arrival. Before long, the door was pushed open. Yunqian walked in from outside wearing a black suit dress and high heels. She wore exquisite makeup and a low ponytail, looking every bit the powerful career woman. Seeing Yunqian like this, Elliot Reed felt a sense of familiarity and unfamiliarity. In the past, he only regarded Yunqian as a tool he used to retaliate against Lillian for going abroad, never giving her a second glance. He didn't realize that Yunqian was so beautiful and had such a strong presence. "President Liu, I wonder what brings you here today?" Yunqian said with a polite smile. Looking at Yunqian's polite and distant demeanor, Elliot Reed felt very uncomfortable. It felt like something that belonged to him was drifting away and the trend was accelerating. Although he felt uncomfortable, he couldn't show it on his face. "Mr. Yun really has a bad memory. You mentioned a collaboration before, but after ruining my banquet, you never brought it up again." The so-called collaboration mentioned at the time was just an excuse for Yun Qianming. She just wanted to attend Lillian's birthday party and see her exposed and disgraced in person. I didn't expect Elliot Reed to actually take that excuse seriously. I really don't know if I should say he's naive or just stupid. The collaboration was not only Yun Qian's excuse, but also Elliot Reed's. I don't know what his motivation was, he just wanted to see Yun Qian. He hadn't been sleeping well these days, the figure of Yun Qian always lingering in his mind. After all, the two had been husband and wife for 3 years, and even if his initial purpose for marrying her wasn't good, there was still some affection between them in their later interactions. Yun Qian's sudden departure still made him feel a little uncomfortable. This was the first time Elliot Reed had felt this way. 3 years ago, Lillian's departure abroad only made him feel angry. But now he felt empty inside, as if something was missing, and even he couldn't explain it himself. Yun Qian coughed lightly twice and said, "Regarding the cooperation, Shingya hasn't found a project to cooperate on yet, but there is still an intention. If there is an opportunity, I will look for President Liu." Looking at Yun Qian's evasive remarks, Elliot Reed was not angry, but found it interesting. He gave Secretary Liu next to him a look, and Secretary Liu took out a document from his briefcase and placed it on the table in front of them. "I've brought President Yun a great project, and I'm wondering if President Yun is interested." Yun Qian opened the document and saw that it was a land development project in the west of the city. This land was just released by the government, and various livelihood projects such as schools and hospitals are now being launched around it. In the future, this will be a new economic zone. There are many people eyeing this piece of land, but unexpectedly, it was taken by Elliot Reed. "With such a good project, why does CO Liu want to work with me?" Yun Qian asked directly. With the strength of Tianza Group, they could completely swallow this piece of land and do it themselves. Yun Qian didn't think Elliot Reed was so kind as to share a piece of the pie with her. Moreover, the relationship between the two of them is not the kind where they would think of each other when something good happens. So it's definitely not that simple that Elliot Reed took the initiative to approach her. Elliot Reed lowered his head and smiled slightly, then raised his eyes to meet Yun Qian's. "With our relationship, isn't it natural for us to collaborate on good projects?" "We don't have any relationship." There was a hint of unease in Yun Qian's words. The two of them had already been pretending to be oblivious and exchanging pleasantries for a long time, but now that Elliot Reed had stated the facts so plainly, Yun Qian felt a little uncomfortable. Moreover, Elliot Reed was looking at her in a strange way, which made her feel a little uneasy. She just wanted to get rid of Elliot Reed as soon as possible. Seeing Yun Qian's discomfort, Elliot Reed changed the subject. "I presume Mr. Yun is aware that many people are eyeing this piece of land. Now that it's in my hands, naturally some will be disgruntled. Therefore, I believe that if Shingya and Tianza cooperate, no one will object." Yun Qian pondered for a moment and felt that what Elliot Reed said made sense. Being targeted by many in the business world and becoming the focus of everyone's attention, even with strong capabilities, one will inevitably be bitten. Although it won't have any substantial impact, it's still disgusting. Therefore, Tianza cannot take it all alone. Finding someone to cooperate with is the solution. And Shingya Group is undoubtedly the best choice. In Rongqing, there won't be a more suitable partner than Shingya Group, and Yun Qian's strength is also obvious to all. In the short time since taking office, he has solved both internal and external problems cleanly. Now which merchant in Rongqing wouldn't give her a thumbs up when they see her? The value of this land will only increase in the future, not decrease. Whether it's used to build housing or a shopping mall, it will be a huge profit. There are no permanent enemies in business, only permanent interests. Yun Qian didn't think it was necessary for Shingya to lose a money-making opportunity because of her issues with Elliot Reed. So in the end she agreed to Elliot Reed's request for cooperation. Nighttime inside Rome City's largest bar. Noah sat in the center booth, surrounded by many beautiful women. Before long, a woman in a black slip dress, stepping in slender stiletto heels, walked in from outside. Upon seeing this, Noah immediately dismissed the beauties and got up to greet her. "Miss Yun, you finally arrived. You have no idea how long we've been waiting for you." The woman was none other than Yun Qian, who had just finished work and rushed over after changing her clothes. "Yeah, Qixia, it's been so long since we've seen you and you're even late. You have to be punished with a drink." "That's right, you have to be punished with a drink." The people who were egging her on also grew up with Yun Qian and were former classmates. They are all wealthy second-generation heirs with rich families, and their family companies also have collaborations with Shingya. This gathering today was organized by Noah. Actually, among all the people here, only Noah and Yun Qian have a truly close relationship. The others are just superficial friends with tenuous connections. Their friendship isn't particularly deep, but they still keep in touch from time to time. Faced with the others' teasing, Yun Qian readily punished himself with 3 drinks. Noah didn't stop her either. He knew Yun Qian's alcohol tolerance. Among everyone present, none could match her. Elliot Reed was also hanging out with friends here today. "Hey Elliot, I'm saying, isn't it just a woman? You don't have to keep such a long face." The speaker was Jiang Ian, Elliot Reed's childhood friend. Ever since what happened to Lillian, Elliot Reed seemed to have been in a bad mood, not even attending gatherings with friends, so he thought about bringing Elliot Reed out to have some fun and relax today. But he still had a long face and the girls only dared to watch from the sidelines, not daring to approach. Which implicated his own romantic luck to suffer. Yun Qian attracted the attention of many people as soon as she entered, including Elliot Reed. Elliot Reed noticed her the moment she walked in, and from then on his eyes were locked on her, never leaving her side. Seeing her drinking and interacting with other men with ease, Elliot Reed clenched his back teeth. When Elliot Reed saw Noah's hand on Yun Qian's shoulder, he downed the drink in his hand and slammed the glass hard on the table. Jiang Yan jumped in surprise and exclaimed, "Elliot Reed, what are you doing?" Elliot Reed didn't answer Jiang Yan, his eyes still fixed on Yun Qian. Jiang Yan also noticed something was wrong. He followed Elliot Reed's gaze and saw a familiar figure. Isn't that Yun Qian, the eldest daughter of Shingya who recently returned? What is Elliot Reed looking at her for with such a jealous look on his face? Few people knew about Elliot Reed's previous marriage to Yun Qian, only his close friends knew. They didn't hold a wedding when they got married, not even a dinner with family, and